Okay, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Terry Bissonette. I am an employee of the National Wildlife Federation. I am their Director of Tribal Leadership Development Programs. And in that position, I co-manage the Colorado River Indigenous Youth Advisory Council, and I also manage the Indigenous Women's Leadership Network. Both programs are focused in the Colorado River Basin, and both programs are really focused on uplifting and empowering emerging and established leaders in the 30 tribes of the Colorado River Basin. And I'm so excited today to be joined by some of our participants in our annual river trip. IWLN puts together most years, not all years, but most years, we put together an annual river trip for women to join us and to the two trips that we've done have been on the San Juan River in Utah into Arizona. And we are today going to feature some of those participants. We also have a IWLN scholarship recipient who received a scholarship to attend the Colorado River Water Users Association conference in December, and she's also going to be speaking. So the way that we're going to set this up, I actually have a video to show first off of some of the photos that were submitted by some of our participants of the river trip. So I'm going to show that, and then we will introduce our panelists, and we will ask a couple questions about their experience on the river and also how that relates to um, life balance and reconnecting with community and also leadership and bringing things back to community. And so we'll be asking some of those questions, and then we'll open it up uh, for folks to ask questions of our panelists, and that'll be it. So without further ado, I'm going to share a video. And before I hit pause, please let me know if you cannot hear this. But it should be queued up and ready to go. All right, so I'm gonna stop share. That was our 2025 river trip on the San Juan River. We went from Sand Island campground to Mexican Hat. and it was a 3 day, 3 night trip, and it was amazing. So I am going to ask our panelists if you could please turn your cameras on, and we're going to go ahead and do a round of introductions. And if you could include in your introduction just one thing that you remember from the trip, what was, one of the most memorable memories, I guess, that you had from the trip, that would be great. And I have Tylee first on my left. So Tylee, if you wouldn't mind starting us off.
Hi, everybody. My name is Tylee. I'm from the high deserts of the traditional homelands of the Hopi and Navajo Nation. I would call myself a water protector, storyteller, youth leader, and artist. I was born and raised in the lower and the in Arizona. I'm also a founding member of the Colorado River Indigenous Youth Advisory Council and now a fellow and also a member of the Indigenous Women's Leadership Network. And something that was memorable for me, gosh, that's such a hard thing to pick because that trip literally changed my life. But if the first thing that came to my mind was sleeping underneath the stars, like it was so beautiful just to see the stars and just like fall asleep and I have it be like a blanket over you. I think that was something that stuck with me a lot.
So thank you, Tylee. Andrea, I have you next.
Hello, I'm Andrea. I'm in Arizona. I'm enrolled in the Colorado River Indian tribes. I'm Navajo, and then I'm also a descendant of the Kokopah and the Quechan tribes. Um, my favorite memorable part were seeing all the granaries, like when we'd go hiking or um, out there in the mountains and just like way up there to protect them so that like they just carved out this whole area for the granaries. Like, that was really amazing.
Thanks, Andrea. Cheryl, I have you next. Cheryl, you need to unmute.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes,
Sorry about that.
that's okay.
Hi, my name is Cheryl Pilzote. I'm from the White Mountain Apache Tribe in White River, Arizona. I work as a water resources manager and yeah, had a great time at this trip. I just like Tylee, that's the one of the things that I thought was the most memorable was seeing just that vast expanse of the stars and the skies, but also being able to sleep at night right along that river and to hear that river and then to enjoy the swimming in it, floating down and just sensing how deep that water was when we were doing that. That was probably the most memorable to me.
Thanks, Cheryl.
Mhm.
I've got Kiana next.
Hi everyone, my name is Kiona Taylor. I'm from the Fort Yuma Quechan tribe. The most memorable thing it was just being on the river. It was my first time rafting, so that in itself was just like wow. And also building a relationship with Tylee. Hi Tylee. Haven't seen her since, so it's good to see so many familiar faces.
Thanks, Kiana. And JJ?
Hi, everybody. JJ here, and I'm happy to be here. Great to see everybody. I'm Danae from Flagstaff area, and I'm a 20-year Army veteran and service member, coming up on yeah, just a little over 20 years, and I'll be well under retirement here in the next couple of months, and looking forward to that greatly. My biggest was reconnecting. I've in large part lived off of reservation and disconnected, I think, from my indigenous uh, community for a very long time. The connection to the land and to, I think, reconnecting to such a large, powerful group of women was really impactful in my life.
Awesome. Thanks, JJ. And Vernita.
Hi. Hi, everyone. I'm Bernita James, and I was one of the people that attended December's conference. And I think my big takeaway from that is how there were a lot of people all coming together with just people with different background, like the attorneys and from different locations, like some were from Mexico, and they're all meeting there together about the water. So I think my biggest takeaway is the data center that's going to be built there in Page, and how everyone needs to advocate more about these data centers because it's really it really uses a lot of water to have something like that built. And then now, so I was listening to Karen Lau or How, and she's a journalist from China, and she was going into detail about the like how Trump went and invested billions of dollars in uranium so that more data centers will be built. So from what I understand, it's a little over 166 that they're proposing on reservations on native lands. Yeah. So that's a lot. And I'm just concerned about the people because it seems like at the end, the natives are the ones who are suffering from all the environmental disasters like the uranium getting into the land and the water. So yeah,
Yeah,
that's the biggest takeaway for me. So I'll go ahead and
yeah.
give it back to you.
Thank you, Bernita.
Sure.
Appreciate it. All right. So our first question for our panelists is, what did this trip teach you about balance and leadership? And not everybody has to answer, but I'm going to just put it out and we'll kind of popcorn. So what did this trip teach you about balance and leadership?
I can go first if that's okay with everyone.
Yes.
Um, I think it reminded me how balance was necessary. I think, oftentimes, like JJ, I was raised mostly off res, and it's been hard to balance knowing who I am and trying to live in the world, off reservation or off around, not being with my community. Um, so it really touched my heart in a way to just be on the river, this the most important resource to us. And with all Native women, it was just kind of like I don't know, it was a surreal feeling, for the most part, but it really made me sit in how I have to try to balance at all times. I can't ignore and just, try to focus on a career when we have, another focus and other obligations to who we are. And as far as the leadership piece, I think that we had to make decisions on the fly. I guess that's what I could think of, that comes to mind. I like I said, Tylee was my partner. We were in a tandem the whole time. And so it was kind of, okay, she would make a decision or I would have to make a decision. And, that was our leadership experience, like coming to, the
That's
forefront there. So
All right. Thank you,
um
Kiana.
yeah.
Appreciate it.
I have some input too.
Yeah.
Um, and I think what I really appreciated and something that was very calming to other leadership realms that I've been a part of, very military, decisive planning and you've got one leader, and the direction and tasks all are delineated from that. There you might have just the structure. I think in this group it was very calming and like almost a healing way that like leadership could be calm. There was zero yelling. There was zero, yes, we had things to do. We had a daily itinerary, but I think women like in this group, we naturally have an awareness of what needs to be done. And I think we collectively, like whether that's the cooking, the cleaning up, um, and that like there's like a natural caretaking that takes place. And I don't think, it wasn't something that had to be aggressively managed. I appreciate that about spaces where women really take ownership and run that. I also felt very protected. I think the leadership in the beginning of the trip, when we didn't have kind of the supplies or things were late, I saw leadership actively taking a responsible role to say, this isn't the right way. Like you were here, supposed to be here 5 hours hours ago or whatever the situation. I don't know the whole details behind that, but I saw active caretaking, and it wasn't ever tense or putting everybody else on edge. And I think I really, really appreciate that about how we're able to live in harmony and the balance. So I think leadership that I had missed was very calm and very balanced and very contributory, allowing for everyone to contribute and giving space to that. That was something that I felt was a really, really big value for me to see, that nothing was going against the grain, nothing was having to be chiding or punishing, but we naturally, I think, see needs and fill them, whether it's and that is just something that's so like a salve, and a strength, I think, that is overlooked by other leadership styles. And it's a strength of Native women.
Mm. Thank you, JJ. I will admit, there was a little yelling on my part that first night. And I put I put myself in timeout. That's why I slept in my car that night and I didn't get I didn't get a tent because I needed to put myself in timeout. I got a little stressed. But it all worked out, so that's good. Um, Cheryl, did you want to add?
Yeah, I was thinking about just this balance of I work in a field of mostly males, and so I don't have a lot of female Native women who I work with. So that balance of being out there and seeing young and the people my age who are all working together and hearing about what you're doing and just that balance of that I thought was really great to hear and see that women are out there doing things and doing things for their community and reminding myself that I'm part of that group as well. I thought that was a really good balance, but also about protecting our resources, right? We're on the river. We have waste. I mean, every little thing we had to pick. We had to make sure about our waste, our sewer waste, and just what we have to bring in, what we have to bring out. But so the enjoyment, the things that we enjoyed there was also that balance of making sure that we protect that resource. That wasn't one. Also the history, you're talking about the places that we stopped and the places that we visited and reminding myself of the people that were here before. And that was something that, it's like, and we're still here. I thought, and we're still here protecting that river. And I thought that was a really good area of balance. But in regards to leadership, again, back to that networking, meeting women who are doing things at their levels and understanding who they are and making those connections and saying that all of us have this role and we're doing this. And so this river trip brought us together. And so that really helped me as well as thinking about the leadership and where we go from here.
Thanks, Cheryl.
Hmm.
You and I kayaking down rapids will be a memory that I carry for the first time. That's a core memory for me. So thank you.
Yes.
Anybody else want to talk about balance and leadership?
I can go really quickly.
Okay.
Kind of going off of what everybody has said, that it was, I think what it had taught me is that leadership is a big balance. and everybody is having people come out from different communities, like there are leaders in their own communities, and it was so powerful to see like we had, grandmas and mothers and daughters there, and I think that just showed like you need to have like a balanced, group of people to be able to be good leaders and strong leaders, and I think that's something it proved to me in that moment, something I've always known, but it was seeing it there. I think it taught me the importance of like having balance in leadership. And also again, yeah, what Cheryl was saying, we had people from different, professions come around. And I think that was, we all had our strengths in one area and then together, like we were a very strong group.
Thank you, Teddy. Anyone else? All right. The next question. How will you carry what you learned, or what responsibility will you carry from the river back into your work or your community? So what do you carry forward?
I can go. So I definitely learned more about like respect for the water, the whole nature of it. Like you were saying before, we work together, and um, so like respecting our community that we had built within the whole. Um, and then something that I took back with me was that I give the cultural orientation at my work to all the new employees who come. So like some are tribal, some are non-tribal, and I just try and tell them about some of our cultural stuff. And you can't mention our culture without the river. So it's right there on the river. So a lot of it that I learned on the trip, like the petroglyphs and the pictographs, like I got to explain those because we have some too, but like now I have actual pictures and I can use it in the example. And yeah, it's just really great that I can share that with them, being on the river, being on the trip. So that's
Uh,
about it.
yeah, thank you, Andrea. Anyone else?
I can go if you want.
Okay.
So I would say storytelling and presentation. I just had one last week and I talked about the Colorado River, how the river is a living entity. And as Navajo people, um, I was telling them that if you incorporate the Sa'anale Big Ehojo, which is I guess in the most simplest form would be the balance, the harmony, the um, that belief system back into people's concept, that in the future we can also think about the future generations and so forth. So I told them that I feel like water is an entity and that we need to incorporate that, kind of like how we had a conversation at the workshop in December, that they were talking about how the Crit tribe incorporated the Colorado River as a personhood. And I'm kind of like thinking that maybe all native tribes should do something like that so that I guess for sustainability, that's what I'm thinking. But as far as my presentation, a lot of my classmates, they liked it. And they also want to see what the ending resolution is going to be like, how I write the paper. So
Yeah.
I'm proud to be a part of this organization. So,
Yeah, thank you, Vernita.
mhm.
I'd like to respond to that as well.
Okay.
So being on the river, when we were in San Juan, one of the things that I noticed, and some of the women had told me as river guides, is just how underrepresented we are. And we did see people along the river, and I was thinking that, yeah, we don't see many tribal people, right? And or even any. And so I start thinking about the river that we have here. We're the headwaters of the Salt River, which flows into the Phoenix area. And, and so I don't know much about how that, if we do rafting and how that works. And so, as a water resources manager, one of the things that I do in our community is educate our community about how we can use our water. And yet, here's one resource that I really didn't know much about. So that was one of the tasks I had wanted to do, was to figure out how I can do that, and coordinated with the U.S. Forest Service in Globe. They have a rivers guide that goes down um, and Salt River down to Roosevelt Lake. And so I was able to talk to him about possibly doing a Native women's trip, and then also a youth one. And so it's a 3-day trip that they flow down the Salt River. Unlike like the San Juan, when I first went there, I was like, okay, how much flow does this, river have? About that time, it was like about 600 CFS, whereas the Salt River is about 100 CFS. So the flows are a lot less. So like right now, nothing's flowing. I mean, not nothing's flowing. We can't go rafting on this river. So we got to find a good time to do it. But I just told them, let's plan a next year. Let's go ahead and do this and see what we need to do that. And so the permitting process, the planning process, these are things that I'll be starting, but really looking forward to it and hoping that we can get a group down that river, down the Salt this next year.
That's great, Cheryl. And were you also planning on planting red willow? Can you
Actually,
share some of that?
yesterday we had the Save the Salt project, and all these resources managers came out with us, and we cut a bunch of salt cedar in an area that's really popular with going down that river, but also camping and fishing. And so we did put willows and restored willows in that area. And so this group, that's what they do. They go down the rivers, and they said that they try to address a lot of the invasive species along that river. So that's another part of it that we want our community to learn more about. And so that is because a lot of these areas are remote. So this gives us an opportunity to do restoration as well as learn about the river.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mhm.
Anyone else?
I will say that this increased my awareness. And I think along with like maybe where I live, just being disconnected from how important the issue is, allowed me for some reconnection to the reservation. I now go home a lot more frequently than I have in the last 2 decades, and being a more active participant in my local chapter, which is something that I didn't really have engagement in prior. So being a more aware Native community member at my chapter where chapter issues are concerned, and also in my local community, being aware of our water resources and the kind of knowing where my water is coming from. I'm affected by fracking in my community, and my home is fed off of 2 wells that were contaminated, and I had to buy a water filtration system to have clean water in house, which was really unfortunate and also really expensive. But I wouldn't have known about the fracking coming in. So it's allowed me to increase my own personal, I think, awareness and education about it.
That's really important. And I think that that's been a common theme, even with getting the Colorado River Indigenous Youth Advisory Council up and running, is questioning where does your water come from? Because so many of us don't ever think of it. We just turn the tap on, and I mean, I know in the Navajo res, it's more of a because there's so many who don't have running water, and so it's very, that's a daily challenge. But there's so many of us that just, take the water for granted. And so that question of like, where does your water come from is really, really important. So thank you, JJ. Go ahead, Tylee.
I'll be really quick. I think
Oh, you don't have to be quick.
the
You're good.
responsibility I carry forward from this experience is that I want other people to experience this and other youth to experience this. Like never in a million years would I ever thought I would be on a rafting trip, like in my homelands, guided by my own relatives, surrounded by my relatives. Like that is such like an amazing and like thing to say, and I'm so blessed and so privileged to be able to experience that. And I think I just want to continue, advocating for that. And I'm so happy, Cheryl, you're doing that. Like that's so amazing. And that's doing that for especially youth and kids, like that can change like their whole lifestyle and their whole trajectory. And I think that's something I want to continue is just like sharing this experience with people. And when I came home from the rafting trip, I'm a caretaker for my grandma, and I had like a bunch of pictures on my phone, and I was like showing it to her, and I was just like telling her everything. And she was she was just so happy to hear about it because she was like, I would never go rafting. Like she's terrified of water. But it was just nice to tell her that. And then, I told some of her friends and everything. And it was just like it was something nice to talk about and to just like, share this experience I had with them and, you know, hopefully like, my kids or grandkids and, can experience that same thing too.
Thank you, Tylee. All right, I'm going to shift gears a little bit because I think one of the subject that Bernita raised during her introduction about the data centers, and I know I've been on several calls today just in the National Wildlife Federation. We're getting ready for our annual meeting. And for those of you that may not know, the National Wildlife Federation is the oldest conservation organization in the United States. It's one of the big ones. I think Sierra Club may be bigger, but it's one of the top five for sure. So it's a big. I think there's at least 500 employees that are spread across the United States, in plus Alaska and Hawaii as well. And so we do a lot of educating, as tribal folks, we know that we do in a lot of spaces, we end up educating about tribal sovereignty and tribal issues and things like that. And there's a lot of threats right now to tribal sovereignty, to our tribal homelands. I can name at least a half a dozen just off the top of my head. We know that Oak Flat was just given over to a mining company. We know that there's threats to Chaco Canyon, Bears Ears, and on and on and on. And so, thinking about those things and thinking about just the responsibility that we carry as Indigenous people, what role do you think that Indigenous women play in shaping the future of water stewardship, taking care of our water? Um, Thinking about the context that we're currently in, and also just in touching what Cheryl said, reminding us that we're we're in a situation this year that's unprecedented. We're in a historic low snowpack. I actually just spoke with several IWLN members who have in the last couple of weeks have been on the Grand Canyon, have been on the river, on Colorado River, um, and it's already low. They're saying that this is the highest right now that it's going to be, and they had to drag the boat a couple of times already, and so it's pretty scary out there. But what role do you think that we can play as Indigenous women? Um, Thinking about that future stewardship of water, and I'll just kind of open it up to anyone who would like to respond.
Um, I can say so. The area that I live in West Central Texas, some may know this, but we just had one of the largest data centers in the country. Well, it had been under construction, and it's now partly in operation. And so I work at a council of governments, and we didn't know about them coming in, and who are we in a sense of these decisions are going to be made without us at the table. But I think I'm in a unique position as the only Indigenous woman in this council of governments, but also there's not many of us in this region. And I say it brings up a lot of frustration because I see all the goings on the back end of things when, right before they're released to the public. And it makes me feel helpless because I feel like I'm at the table, but I feel like I don't have a big enough voice. And maybe it's because I'm only one in an area that doesn't really care about water. Um, and so from after the trip, when I got back, we actually went after a water infrastructure grant. We didn't get it, but that seed was planted from the trip. And so this was prior to, all the information about the data center being released to us. But I will say that showing up is the most important thing, using your voice in whatever way we can is, even if it falls on ears who don't want to listen, I think continuing to speak why our water is important and how we take advantage of it, we take it for granted. And I don't know, I'm kind of getting a little emotional because I'm thinking about the region and how it was welcomed without any education, without any knowledge of what it's going to do to the area. And kind of it really makes me upset because I'm seeing it, reading the news from all over. I think back home in Andrea, I don't know if you can give details about it, but for Imperial Valley, how the citizens there pushed it out, and I don't know if our council is considering it. I hope not. There's been talks about it. But as river people, I feel like we have a duty that I don't know if money is on the table that we're thinking of. I don't know if there's other, things at play that us as community members don't see, but just being able to use our voice is, the most important part that I can think of right now. And sticking in numbers as far as opposition, So I don't know. I kind of veered off there, got a little
Yeah.
emotional, got a little passionate, but yeah.
Thanks, Kiana.
Yeah, so the area that Fort Yuma sits in is but like right on the border of California, Arizona, and the two towns, Yuma and then El Centro, which is in California, like 45 minutes away. So like they have both rejected the data centers. And of course they're looking, right at Fort Yuma, like put one there. There's plenty of room. It's being, brought up a lot, but no one's saying anything. So hopefully that whatever they look into and whoever like funding it and coming through, like hopefully that everything gets considered for the environment, the water, the land, the tribe, like who's giving up that land to put this here. I've seen it done at other tribes, the data centers, and like actually you wouldn't even know it was a data center. Like it looks just like a nice building, but like we don't see what's inside internally and like what the damage is or like now or later. So yeah, it's a pretty big thing that like hopefully gets situated and handled the best what's for the people. Um, But on another end, it was brought up, Vernita mentioned that the Crit tribal chairwoman, Amelia Flores, made the Colorado River a living person. And,
Mhm.
that's pretty good. Like, what does that mean? It just means, well, it means the river now has a voice. It's got
Mhm.
rights that are going to be protected. The chairwoman, we had a Water Day celebration last month, and she just said, the water is not a resource, it's our relative. And I think, it's true. And it would be great if other tribes along the river could do something like that. Get it all together, all connected.
Thank you, Andrea. And for those who may or may not know, Chairwoman Flores is one of our co-chairs for IWLN. She's one of our 4 co-chairs. So we're lucky to have her. Anyone
Terry, you're
else?
mentioning historic snowpack, low snowpack levels, and we're experiencing that here on the Salt Basin as well. And we're also seeing higher temperatures, and that's just been consistent, every year. And so, I farm and I forage, and so I've been going out into the forested areas, and I'm seeing plants come out that a month earlier than what I've seen before, and some plants that are not coming back, and just probably staying safe in the ground and not wanting to come out. But yeah, so just that lack of moisture and how dry it is, that is a concern for us. And so, my mother always talks to me about kinship and about the women's role in our community. And I think that that's something that's going to be important during this time, as mothers and as women who are part of families, we wanted to protect our families. And this is going to be a very bad year. Last year was already hard enough, but we depend on water, surface water, and groundwater to provide for our community. But this is going to be a serious time, and how do we react to that? How to respond to it? And so planning ahead and meeting with our communities, talking within our families, those are ways that, we're going to have to start doing more of that, and I hear some of you talk about going back and meeting with your families and talking about the importance of that relationship. But sometimes you're in that community and you don't do that. You're too busy or you have other priorities. But this is going to be a time when we're going to need to go back and reestablish those personal daily connections between each other so that we can address something like this.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Mm.
Just real quick, I wanted to also add that a way to do this would be advocating. Do you remember how we had to write a letter? I don't recall to who right at the moment, but it's pertaining to Colorado River back in March. And it was due March 2nd, right?
Hmm. Yeah, the Bureau
So,
of Reclamation.
yes. And then maybe writing letters to media centers, for instance, for the Navajo tribe, it would be like the Navajo Times, I think. And then just like Cheryl said, our local government, maybe even the congressional state offices would be another area to voice the opinion. And then I just want to mention that, like climate change is serious, but a lot of people are not taking it that way. And that if anything, all they see is dollars and money. And then if you go I see my word, I go out to like Outlook or Excel, and all you see is all these solicitation about AI. So I don't recall where I heard that they've already used at least 4% of the water just within, I guess, just the sheer, just in data centers or the AI situation. And then, I also agree that females serve an important role in protecting the water. I recall when I was small that my grandma would say, before you cross the river, make sure you pray, use the corn pollen before you walk over because the water has a personality and that it can either take your life or it can give you a life. And that it's important to know that information. Um, uh, And the other thing I wanted to mention was in ceremonies too. My husband's mom, she used to always bring in water. Would be like in a peyote meeting after midnight, and she would be like the one bringing in the water. So I used to ask, like, why is she the one bringing in water? What's going on? So it's like a privilege, and it's like it's on us as women to carry on that knowledge and share with our grandkids and family members, community members, and so forth. So wherever you're at, like my situation. I presented it to all the Balaganas that are out here, and I think there's just only a few, maybe three Native Americans in my class. So regardless, I still shared that because the water comes from Colorado River. It's for this Tucson area. That's where I'm at. And it does get really hot. So I wanted them to be aware that we got to be careful and then not to use too much. You use just enough, just like eating. I also took care of my dad. It's been about a year since he passed, and he used to get mad at me when I used to serve him food. And then I said, "Why? How come you're getting mad?" And then he grew up believing that you eat just enough. So he would be mad because he didn't have the appetite to eat all his food and he didn't want to waste it. So that's how he explained it to me. And I'd like to share that with you all too.
Thank
That's
you,
all.
Bernita. Thanks. Tylee?
I think this question for me, it seems so like inherent because I come from like a matrilineal society and it's like, that's what, the matriarchs lead. But I think thinking back to what JJ has said in the beginning is that like we are the caretakers of our communities and of the land. Like Cheryl, you're seeing the changes in your community by being on the land. And I think it's so important to be like leading these conversations and also having our worth being recognized because we honor our relations and we honor our lineages, like how Chairwoman Amelia Flores is honoring her relations and her lineage as River people by trying to do everything she can to protect that water. Um, so I think that's just like it's something as so simple as just like we just are honoring our relations and honoring our lineages, honoring things that that gave us life. Like what Renita is saying, it's something that can give us life and it's something that can easily take our life.
Yes, just a couple of things that I was thinking about when everyone was speaking. So I'm Ojibwe, and in Ojibwe, the word for water is Nabi, and it literally means the giver of life and the taker of life. That word means both. And so, yes, you always offer tobacco to the water, to thank the water for the life that it's giving, because you never know what might happen. So I was thinking about that, and I was also thinking about I at Getch's Wilkinson, which is another, for those of you that may not know, is another Colorado River conference. There's two major Colorado River conferences during the year, and Getch's Wilkinson is the second one. The other one's in Las Vegas in December. Um, and the question Lorelei Cloud had talked about on a panel that she was on about how we need to decolonize the Colorado River. And someone asked, what does that mean? And to me, and a term that I've come to know that over the course of this last year is land rematriation, which means returning to our matriarchies. It's restoring the relationship between Indigenous people and our homelands and waterways. It's restoring keystone species. It's protecting riparian ecosystems along the river. It's land back. It's all of those things, and I think that is truly what this trip and what a lot of the focus and the intentions behind a lot of the things that the Indigenous Women's Leadership Network does. And I think as we move forward of like what will IWLN, what does the membership need from IWLN in order to assist? Because of course a lot of this is super super heavy, right? It's heavy and it's hard to process, it's hard to operate when there's so much heaviness. And then if you also couple that with feelings of isolation and you're just one person out of all of the, I think a few of you have spoke about that. um what can the network do to help to support so that we can, in our individual ways, in our local areas, wherever we happen to be, that we can be that, be that voice and be that that connection, that kinship, not only to each other but also to our land and waterways. And that's something that I know that the co-chairs and myself are deeply committed to, and hopefully in this next, we've been kind of going through somewhat of a transition, but hopefully in this next year, really kind of focused on specific things that we can do to help support as well. Because we don't, I don't think any of us want to feel it's just very easy to start to feel hopeless and helpless. That's for sure. With so much happening at once. And so yeah, that's kind of the message that I want to leave everybody with, I guess. I'm going to open it up to see if there's any questions from those of you that have joined us. Thank you, Alice. And if there's not any questions, I'm just wondering if any of our panelists have any last thoughts that you would like to share.
I have one more thing. I forgot to mention it about the responsibility I've carried from this experience or things that I've done after this is that I wrote like a little story about the rafting journey and it was kind of like a photo essay that I kind of did and I did that and I put it in the chat. I did it just to write about this experience just because I don't like the idea of like things only existing in one person or in one room. And so I always try to like make it more accessible and make it more just like sharing it with people. I can't find it right now, but I recorded like an audio version of it where I just read the text and then I just had the pictures and I like to show that to like the elders and the youth just because it's like an easier way to accept like the information. And it's also just like someone's telling you a story. So I wanted to share that with you guys. So you guys can see more of like a sneak peek and everything of how it was.
Thank you,
And
Tylee.
the other thing is, you guys, like, if you know your language, use that to communicate because it's very powerful. It's more meaningful. It is for me. And then when I speak that to my kids, they're like, "What is that, Mom?" So, like, Navajo is very polysynthetic, meaning that one word could describe so many words that is used for the English language. And just like this, yeah, but that word alone means like long life, living all the way into being an elder, being a senior citizen, and so forth. So I was just going to add that. And then before I give it to someone else, I also wanted to mention that the data centers, what a lot of people, or I didn't know this, that it creates something called noise pollution. Not only will it be coming from the diesel, but you'll be able to hear whatever that data center does with all the sound. So I'm suspecting maybe kind of like electrical sound is what I'm thinking. Um, and then that it is so loud that it can also rupture an eardrum. And then there's also something called an heat island that it creates that it can increase up to 16% of wherever the data center is, and which can cause ecological collapse. And then in rare cases, it also is tied to cancer and also a respiratory toxin. So there's a lot of things that we never really considered, including electricity, how it's going to have a lot of massive strain on the grid and possibly blackouts. And then last but not least, the risk of fires. So I just wanted to share that. And then as far as the lower basin of the Colorado River, so like in this area where we're at, those are the people that will be affected first if the drought continues. So climate change is pretty serious. And sadly, the rich people are going to be the ones that would have access to water. And it would be like people that live in marginalized areas that would be affected.
Well,
So that's
thank you,
all.
Bernita.
Mhm.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I
So
want to
I
say,
just, oh, go ahead,
oh,
Kim.
oh,
Yes.
sorry.
No,
I want
please.
to say something that sits with me, and it's kind of funny because JJ and Tyler are both on this. JJ had made the remark, and I forget the exact words, but about how Tyler and I just were so funny. Tyler, I don't know if you remember how it was said or JJ how you said it, but that's something that I really hold on to because it's just like we just hit it off so well and it was just kind of evident and like JJ noticed it. And anyways, I thank you all for allowing me on the trip and being able to build a connection with the ladies like I had.
Yeah, awesome. But yeah, our humor is one of the reasons why we're still here, right? And so that's I often when I'm in non-native spaces and I speak about climate change and I speak about water and things like that, I often say, you know, this isn't our first rodeo as far as facing an existential crisis as Indigenous people, and so we do have a lot to share, a lot of ancestral wisdom that we can share with our um, our mainstream cousins, I guess I should say. So, but I do want to thank each of you. You know, this webinar, we wanted to put it on in December or January. We pushed it off because there was so much happening with the Colorado River and the the draft EIS was going to be coming out and things like that. And it was unfortunate because, you know, as the longer time goes, it's harder to remember like the trip, and it's been 6, 7, 8 months, whatever. But I'm so glad that we did this. This has been I've done 5 webinars now since I started this position, and this is by far the most powerful one, I believe. And so I just want to thank each of you for your contributions to the webinar, and also just your storytelling. And um, you know, it's just an honor, and it was an honor to have you all on the trip, and you know, with Bernita bringing you to Las Vegas. And I look forward to reconnecting at some point with each of you. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks,
Okay.
Terry.
All right.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Terry.
everybody.
Thank
Mhm.
Have a
you.
great day.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay. Bye.